Hello everyone, welcome to today's session on 11 tricky Java coding output questions. Now this topic is chosen because many of you have requested for this in the previous sessions. I think I remember in the last session also 2 or 3 of you requested that you want a session where we deal with code snippets, and we check out the output. How does the output work? And tricky questions that are asked in interviews or as well as written exams sometimes, because the question seems very simple, but when you go ahead and solve it, or when you see the 4 or 5 options that are given to you, you feel kind of lost what to do with these options, because more often than not 2 or 3 of the options feel like, okay, this could be the answer and this could be the answer, and then you get all confused. And same thing happens sometimes in the interviews as well. There are no options for you, but the interviewer is like sound enough to confuse you with different options, and he'll keep throwing different jargons at you to confuse you. So we'll take a look at 11 questions. Now there are many questions that can be framed that are tricky and that have kind of output that you don't expect them to give, because Java is a very vast language, right? But in today's session, we'll quickly go through 11 questions which are tricky, which when you go through, you'll get to know a few concepts in even more detail than you already knew. And also you'll get to know how to track down questions, how to, divide these problems into modular parts to get to the right answer. Sometimes it is very clear that the answer is this, but when you see the whole code right in front of you, you get confused, you get mumbled and jumbled up with all the coding jargons written there. And for the ease of it, or for your practice, what I have done in today's session is I have been a bit loose on the code formatting. 2 reasons for that. One, because generally code formatting is not done in coding rounds or coding written exams. That is so that you get to see code in haphazard way and you get confused. When the code is properly formatted, it is easier to figure out where the error is or which part of code is going wrong. But if it is not properly formatted, students generally get confused. They are not able to actually pinpoint where the error is. Also, since I'm sharing the screen with you, I couldn't put one question on more than one slide. So for the ease of it, I have in a few slides done a little bit here and there with the code formatting. So keep that in mind while you are solving the questions in today's sessions. All right. Now with that said, let me see who all have joined us today. Govi, hi Govi, hi Durgesh. We have Arnav, Krishna, Prateek, Hemsagar, Sava Maria, and Prateek is asking me new specs. Yeah, I'm working too much, so I got par now. Anyways, so let's quickly jump onto the session. I'll share the screen with you now, give you a question, give you a minute or so to solve the question, and once the minute is over and most of you are able to come out with the answers, then we'll go ahead and discuss the question to see what actually should be the approach for solving a question like that. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the first question. Okay, so the slide you see here has public class test. Now the next line is generally public static void main string hours. Okay, so assume that we have public static void main there, and then the next 2 lines inside the code are the 2 comments. Now what will be the output of this code? Let me write it out here for you. All right, so this is your program. Now we have 2 comments single line comments in Java start with these two lines, these two slashes. Now what will be the output when you run this program? Good evening, Ankit. So those of you who have access to your laptops or your computers, don't use them for now, for the purpose of this session, for the purpose of checking how good your concepts are. Don't touch your laptops, just take a pen and paper if required for some of the questions and try to figure out the answers on your own without the help of your laptops or desktops. All right? Okay, I've got two answers. Sai Surya says blank and Pushottam also says no output. Madhav Rapu, I hope I'm saying your name correct. You said that comment will be executed. Fine, the comment will be executed, but what will be the output of after the execution of the comment? Hi Aminul, welcome to the session. This is the first question. So get started, get cracking. What is the output of this question? See, keep in mind every minute detail that you see in the program. Now the program could be a single line program, 3 lines, 4 lines, but there could be a lot of detail in there. Suraj said compile time error. Suraj, can you tell me why there would be a compile time error for this question? Brunel says comment executed. Guys, if the comment is executed, the comment executed output you get, can you elaborate? I would like to know if you have the right concept in your head, why the comment executed output will come. Blank, blank, blank. Many of you are on blank and no output. Hi Ishwarya. Div, the session has started. I hope you are able to see the screen and you are able to listen to me as well. Default value of char is given as comment. Venkata, can you please explain your answer? Because I'm not able to understand why the default value of char is given as comment. All right, Mangesh says compile but runtime error. What do you mean by compile but runtime error? Ashutosh, the session just started. We are on the first question. You haven't missed anything yet. This is the very first question that we are dealing with. Fahim, you're right that /u000d has some value, but what is that value? Prateek says program will execute but no output will appear on the console. Guys, I feel like you have not practiced enough on the weekend. I thought weekend you guys would have practiced a lot and then today I'll get all the right answers. You spend your weekend all partying and having fun. Hemsagar says something is there but I don't know the output. I'm glad that you at least noticed that something is there because of which the output would be varied. Purushottam ID ignores the comment, but you have to check what is ahead of the comment as well, right? The second line is given char, which will JVM try to run but compile time error. No, Suraj, you're wrong. Naveen says, will the program... Naveen, I think you joined late. I just mentioned that there's public static void main. at the top. That's why I have explicitly written it. So that is your question. There's public static void main there in the program, so don't worry about that. Apart from that, what will be the output? Debian says empty string will be the result. All right, I hope all of you have tried and given your answers, and like I said, none of you would have used your laptops and desktops, because if you are doing that, you are fooling yourself. Don't do that. All right, try to use your mind, try to use the topics that are in your head, try to exercise your brain and find the answers without using your desktops and laptops and phones, etc. All right, Madhav Rao says because Java do not compile comments. All right, now that I see all of you were there, have tried, Suraj is finally, I think, coming to the right answer. Alright guys, so I hope all of you have heard of Unicode characters, right? So the piece that you see right here, this part, this is a Unicode character for new line. Alright, now this Unicode character for new line, what will it do when this program will compile? What your actual program will look like is this line will turn into this. This Unicode character will give a new line, and the rest of the code will come after the new line. That is system.out.println comment executed. All right, because of this Unicode character that you see right here, that's why I said focus on every minute detail of the program that you see in front of you, whether it be a written exam, whether it be in your interviews, because all these nitty-gritty details are what, you know, keep you from giving the right answer. What the first instinct is when you're running out of time in a written exam, or when there is pressure in an interview, you just see that there are 2 lines with comments and you just forget about them. You don't bother about checking what actually is there after the comment. Had this been a big program with 6-7 lines of code, you guys would not have focused on the 2 comments, right? You would have focused on the code before these or after this. But keep in mind, when questions like this are asked, or any question is asked, keep your mind open, because there could be a compile time error, there could be a runtime error, there could be anything out there hidden anywhere. So read your code very, very carefully, and that's why it's very essential to, you know, exercise your brain while doing some of these questions. That is when you get to practice, and that is when you get to, you know, exercise your mind to see all these small details. All right, so this Unicode character brings your code after this, that is this whole line, into the next line, and now this simply is a new line Unicode character. Now it would be easier to figure out if you would have had, let's say, in your written exams you have 4 options in which you see output like this, then you should be easily able to figure out like that this is a new line Unicode character. Now for the ease of understanding, keep in mind all these basic Unicode characters. Raj is asking to explain Unicode characters. Raj, Unicode characters is the character formatting that is used to express all these characters, numbers, symbols, etc. in the computer language. So if you want to have a new line in the code, you can enter and put it in the new line, or you can have this Unicode character. Another way for a new line when you are printing an output is the /n, right? The escape sequence /n. That also put you to the next line. So there are a few ways like this. Similarly, space. If you want to give a space, you can actually give space using the keyboard key, or there is again Unicode character for space. So like this, keep in mind a few Unicode characters so that if there is a question around them, you should be able to, you know, actually pinpoint the right one. Now if you have checked this question correctly, you would if not able to make out that it is a new line character, you would at least be able to make out that it is a Unicode character, because of which the output would be different. So instead of answering it wrong, you can at least skip it. If you are not aware of which Unicode character it represents, you should skip it then, because safe side, don't answer it wrong, right? So ideally, remember these 4-5 Unicode characters, like starting of A, 1 to 9, 0 to 9, A to capital Z, small a to small z. You can remember all those, right? And then these new line, space, all these basic Unicode characters you can remember. But if not, try to skip a question like this. As soon as you hit your eye on the second line that has the Unicode character, you know that the output is not going to be straightforward, because that Unicode character might do something to change the output, which is happening in this case, right? So that way you can avoid giving wrong answer in your questions. All right. And Unicode is for next line, but we can use ln also. Yeah, you can use /n also for him, but /n would work inside system.out.println. Now, the point of having this Unicode here is that students forget about checking Unicode. Now, /n is familiar to all of you. You would know what a /n would do, but that there is a Unicode, and because of which the next part of the code is going to the next line, that is the trick here, right? That is why they have used Unicode instead of /n. Okay, and more. Okay, Sagar is asking, please tell more about Unicode characters like space and \. Okay, all these Unicode characters you can just Google search. There is a huge list. Now you don't have to remember all the Unicode characters, because that would drive you crazy. Trust me, there are many of those. The basics that you should remember is capital A, and then you keep incrementing it to get to capital Z, then small a, 0 to keep incrementing till 9 to get to 9 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. These are the basics. Then you can have again space, \, new line. These 5-6 Unicode characters, if you have in your mind, that should be enough to get through all these interview questions and all these trick questions involving Unicode characters. Okay, fine. Let's jump on to the next question. Okay. What is going to be the output of this code? Now again, guys, focus on each and every line. You can see there are basically just 2 lines in this program inside the main, but what those 2 lines are doing, you need to carefully look at each and everything, and that process should be like very quick. You cannot spend more time on a single question. Abhinash is asking, give some questions from collection. Abhinash, now today's session is actually all prepped up with these tricky questions. Collections we'll take up in some other session. All right, you can check out the previous videos on collection. Rakhi asked why the comment is not ignoring the Unicode. Because the Unicode, even if you have put a comment, the whole line would be read by the compiler, and as soon as it reaches the Unicode, it sees that there is a /n, so it jumps immediately onto the next line for the rest of the line. That was the system.out.println. All right, so I've started getting answers for 1327. Okay, I see all of you are giving me answers that include a mixture of the strings that we have here and numbers, and all of you are giving me inconsistent responses. Saurabh asked, in interview the interviewer will ask questions from collection and framework. Saurabh, in interviewer, the interview can ask anything that he wants to ask. So if you say you know Java, he can definitely ask you collections and frameworks, until and unless you explicitly specify that you don't know this. Okay, Aminul, you're saying *4 is right or wrong. So you have mentioned 2 quotes in there. You put 4 in quotes. I think you got what the problem with the code is, but you have not explained it correctly to me. Hemsagar said all will be concatenating, no addition takes place. Okay. Alright guys, even after, okay, Suraj said compile time error. Why? Guys, this is where you lose your marks. Focus on the question, focus on every little detail in the question. Yes, Aminul, you got it right. There is 1 quote, and because of which there will be error, and that would be a compile time error. This program, guys, will not give any output. There will be a compile time error in this program. Now all of you, as soon as you saw this program, you straight ahead jumped to making the string output as per whatever, I don't know, logic that you did, and that to the string output, most of you have given me wrong. See, the fairly simple thing is, when you are concatenating string, when you are using plus, it is string concatenation. All right, that you are aware of. Now when you start doing string concatenation, you see string should be in quotes. So 1 is in quotes, fine, you'll get 1. Now concatenate 1 to it. This is a string. Now we are not dealing with numbers. If you do a string concatenation, and even if you mention number, it will be added to the string. So we get 1, then plus 2 we get 2, then 2 we get 2, right? Then we get 3, then 3, then 4. Simple string concatenation happening, right? Now as soon as you reach to this point, you see that this string 4 has 1 quote missing, and because of this 1 quote missing, when the compiler is compiling this program, it will give you compile time error that the string that you have mentioned has missing quote. It was such a simple program. How did you miss out that there is a quote missing, guys? And that too after me stressing so many times that focus on each and every single detail. And even after that, many of you have given me the wrong answer. Now let's say, had there been a quote in this program, then the output would have been 4, 5 and 5. Simple string concatenation is happening. I don't know why you guys missed out on, some of you guys missed out on this 1 and 2, some of you guys missed out on some strings in the middle. How did that logic happen? I'm not able to understand how you guys concluded to that logic. When you concatenate strings, alright, it's fairly simple. Let's say we have 1 plus 123. Let's say we have this simple string s is equals to 1 plus 123. All right, what this is doing is adding 123 to the end of this string. 123, and this complete becomes a string that is assigned to s. That is how string concatenation happens. So similar thing is happening right here in this line. One by one you keep adding all these strings to the final output string, but as soon as you reach here, a quote is missing, because of which you get error. Had this code been there, you would have got this output as it is, right? Okay, let me just quickly check your comments if you have any doubts, and then I'll move on to the next question. Do you have any Bangalore branch for classroom program? Nope, we have only classroom programs running in Hyderabad branches. All right, plus 1 1 2. Bhushan got it right. 1 1 2 2 3. Hi Mansoni. All right, Arnav says silly mistake. Arnav, you should avoid doing these silly mistakes. Don't get multiple chances. That is why I'm focusing again and again. Keep your mind to the alerts and keep in check every single thing that is there in the program. You don't know where an error is, or you don't know where a colon is missing or a quote is missing, or if there is an actual logical error in the program, right? Okay, moving on quickly. Now, just because we are in a session and you are not giving an actual exam doesn't mean you will take forever to do these questions. It's just one-liner questions, guys. Quickly read it, but read it carefully. All right. Now, operator questions are very frequently asked in written examinations: post increment, pre increment, unary operators, etc., etc. So a good hang on these is really essential, because you'll definitely find a few questions if you are going to any written exam, any technical written exam. Madhav Rapu is asking, shall we create an array in objects? You shall create whatever you need to create. Depends on what your problem is. You can, if you want to ask whether you can create, yes, you can create array in objects. Papu Pandit says, hello, hi. Join in quickly. Come on guys, start giving me the answers. These are simple numbers: 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. See clearly where the space is. See whether it's a unary operator, whether it's a pre-increment, it's a post-decrement, what is going on. Take a clear look at everything and then give me the answer. Oh, all right, I got one compile error from Hemsagar. I got another compile error from Devis. Java doesn't support operator overloading. We are not doing operator overloading here. This is not how you do operator overloading. This is a simple mathematical expression whose answer you have to give. Said, what are you not understanding? What are you missing here? So we are dealing, if you have just joined, we are taking a look at some tricky Java output questions that are asked in interviews or written examinations, and one by one we are taking a look at the question and then checking the answer. So this is the question right here on the screen for you. Figure out what the answer of this would be. Divis, that's true that Java doesn't support operator overloading, and this is not operator overloading. Okay, I get 2 more errors from Arshad and Simran. Shantanu is asking me, kindly suggest any good book to practice code. There's no good book to practice code. No one can teach you how to practice until and unless you sit and practice on your own. Find out, just Google, take out random questions from, there are so many questions out there on the internet. Keep taking 1 question every day or 2 questions every day or 5, 6 as per your bandwidth, whatever time you have, and keep practicing. You'll get the question wrong maybe 1 time, 2 time, but you learn a lot in the process. So if you want to practice, go ahead, download Eclipse and then start running some programs instead of, depending on books to do that. Revanth Reddy said 23. Revanth, do your calculation again and give me the right answer. And I got 2 more errors. Increment and decrement operators are not work for constant values, Ashok said. Ashok, these are simply unary operators in action. Okay guys, for all those of you who are thinking that there is a compile time error in this program, there is no error in this program. This will give you an output. Now tell me, what is the output? Just because there was error in the previous program doesn't mean that there is error in this one too, guys. It's a simple mathematical expression, like I said before, using unary operators. So you just have to figure out the right answer. Suraj gave me 27. Shubha Reddy says 75. 1 out of all of you said 75. So if all of you would have been sitting in an interview or in a written exam where this question would have been asked, only 1 would have got it right. Shashank is asking, where do we get questions? Is there any website? Shashank, just Google Java coding questions and you'll find numerous websites from where you can pick up. I'll try and give you guys a few links in the next session which have really good questions to practice. And they're all open source websites, so you can go ahead, take a look at the questions, but they won't give you the solutions. So again, it's your practice. Hi Sushant. I got 1 more 75, but I'm still getting wrong answers. 23, 27, 21. Guys, it was a simple mathematical question. Why are you not getting this right? Okay, I think all of you have given it a go. So let me quickly give you the right answer, okay? What is happening here is we have a series of unary operators, all right? What a unary operator does is, if you have a number, let's say 11, and you have a unary operator plus in front of it, it will not change the value of it. But let's say if we have minus in front of a number 11 and then there is 1 more minus in front of it, this will change the value of 11 to plus 11, right? Simple unary operator like our everyday maths, correct? Now if, let's suppose, imagine there were braces here. I'm getting many answers now. Nikhila gave me 75, Preeti Shetty says 75, Shantanu Datta 75. Why not 76? Reeve is asking. Okay, Reeve, just give me a minute, I'll explain to you why not 76. Let's say there were braces to make our task simpler, to check the order of precedence of work, right? This is a unary operator, then this is a unary operator, then plus 13, minus 14 and plus 15, right? This is what we have. Now what is happening is 10 plus and plus 11, so plus 11, minus minus becomes plus 12, again plus 13, minus minus becomes plus 14 and plus 15. This simply right here is your answer. 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 15, that is 75. It was hardly a 15 second. In 15 second, I am saying it a stretch. It is hardly a 15-second question. This you should have done and skipped to the next one. And I'm still getting the wrong one. Anand, 75 it is. Alright? Everybody got it? Just quickly, few of you say that you understood how we reached at 75, and then we'll move on to the next question. Tejaswini also replied 75. So Shant is given me 75. Alright guys, so are we good to go to the next question? Cool, so let's jump into the next one. Simple program again. There is string 1 random, there is string 2 random, and there is one if else. Very simple, right? If else all of us learn when we just start learning coding. String all of us deal with in the very beginning of the coding. Nothing hi-fi in this program. No hotshot fundas happening in the program. Very simple, 2 strings and if else. Now give me the output of this question. Ashok is asking, is there any space between operators? Yes, Ashok, there was space between operators. I'll go back. Just a second guys, let me go back and clear Ashok's doubt. Okay, now I have put braces there, so you won't be able to figure it out. But there were operators and then there were spaces between the operators to figure out where the braces are actually lying. Okay? Sorry, move the slide back. Okay, I've started getting answer. 1 not equal to 2. Is there any website to get the open source projects on Java? Madhav Rapu, I'll suggest if you want to prepare a project of your own, you should not look for open source projects. Start doing it on your own and you'll get to learn a lot in the process. Sai Suchendra says 1 double equals to 2. Okay, so we go to the if. That means 1 is equals to 2. Tejaswini, just give me a second, let everybody answer and then we'll get to the answer. 1 not equal to 2, 1 double equal to 2. Else part executed, Simran said, all right. Infinite Technology says 1 double equal to 2. Okay, Infinite Technology, I like your name, but your answer is wrong. With that name, your answer should not have been wrong. Because 1 and 2 have different locations in memory. Ajaz, your explanation of the answer is wrong, but I think your answer is right. But you are giving me the wrong explanation. Debayan Chakraborty says as random and random is not equal, so it will move to else and print. That's the exact right answer to the T. But had random and random been equal, how would it have gone? You can think about that till everybody else answers. All right, so since you all have answered, let's get to the problem. So what is happening here is again a very minute change that will give you the answer in seconds. The A here is small and the A here is capital. So these two strings are not pointing to the same memory reference. So what happens when you create a string is one memory location, you say random, and another memory location you say random, right? Now 1 is the reference pointing to this object and 2 is the reference pointing to this object. Now when you check 1 double equals to 2, what it checks is if both these references are pointing to the same memory location or not. Correct? They are not comparing the value. Keep in mind, they are checking whether the two reference variables are pointing to the same memory location or not, which of course they are not, because both the values are different. Hence we enter into the else and 1 not equal to 2 is printed. That is the reason why 1 not equal to 2 is printed, not because that A and A are different. That if we want to actually compare the value of 1 and 2, we would have used dot equals, not double equal to. When you use double equal to, you are checking whether both the reference variables, in this case 1 and 2, are pointing to the same memory location or not. Now let's say if this would also have been this. So in that case, what would happen is, ideally, when you create a string, a new object is created, correct? But in this case, the first one, random, would be created, stored in a memory location, and 1 is pointing to this, right? Now this is in the cache. Now when 2 is created, compiler sees that the value of the 2 is also similar to the value of 1. So it by default assigns 2 to the same memory location, cache memory location, for the purpose of high performances, right? And that is where if you check if 1 double equals to 2, you get this output, correct? And again, if actually values would have been checked here, we would have used dot equals. But remember, if you are using double equal to, you are checking if both the references are pointing to the same location or not. Okay. Ajaz is the question, 1 double equals to 2 are two different strings with different memory locations, and double equal operator for string compare the memory. Ajaz, that's correct. Now Ayush has asked, how can we make pointing them at the same point? Ayush, we don't make them pointing at the same location. It's what the compiler does. So when we create the first one memory location is occupied with that particular string, correct? Now it is in the cache. Now what happens, the compiler checks that the second one is the exact same value, so it makes it pointed to the same. Ideally, what would happen is, if you create a string using a new string, it would give you two different objects. Then there would be on two different locations, and this would give you false. Let's say in place of this, if we say equals to new string and then we give random, right? Now in this case, even if this and this are same, but this will give error, because when you create an object using new, it creates a new object. So this will be different, and there will be one more memory location with the exact same value where 2 would point, and again you will go into else. All right. Okay, what confusions do you have now? HR says for pointing to same as to equal to 1, then it will point to same memory location. I did not get with what you were referring to, but I hope you have understood the concept now. Okay, if 1 dot equals 2, then what will be the output? If 1 dot equals 2 and we have the same spelling, same everything, then the output will be true. Himsagar says it is cache memory or pool memory. Both the terms in this reference can be used interchangeably. So you might say cache or you might say pool. What would happen if we use dot equal for random and random? Enough. I hope you have written both the spellings same intentionally. If both the spellings are same exactly as you have written and you use dot equal, the output would be true. Because of the value only, the memory reference will be different. But not just because of the value. Like I said, if you create string using this new operator, even if the value is same in this case, there would be 2 different memory locations when you create string using new. If you straight ahead add, value into it like we did in the program, then both would be same. Alright, so all of you have got it. Pratesh is asking what is pool memory. Pool memory or cache memory is what your compiler keeps in memory to keep a track of what is going on in the program so that the program runs faster. It's a nice concept that we can maybe take up in the next session, but for the purpose of this question, it's simply that one variable is already there in the memory. The compiler sees that it was just right there. It references the second one also to the same memory. All right, cool. Now moving on to the next question, and we are on to interfaces. So we have an interface iFruit which has one line of code, then we have a class fruit that implements iFruit and there is no line of code inside it, and then finally we have the class test that has a main method and we have a print statement inside it. If value is different and dot equals is used, then you will get false as output. Dot equals will check the value. So if value is different, it will give you false as output. Madhav Rapu, you can maybe consult your I don't know which year are you in, so consult your teachers on what kind of project they are looking at. They can give you some ideal project ideas, and then break down your project into kind of what all details you would need in the project, right? Like what all input would be required, what is the output, how do you reach from input to output. Try to put it all on pen and paper, right? Let's say you have to design a library system. There would be a table that has the detail of the books, there would be a table that has the detail of the students, etc, etc. All those start from the very, very basics. What all do you need to design that project? Then how you in the logic work out the details of if a book is assigned to a student, it should not be assigned to anyone else at the same time. Now once the book is returned by a student, the book should be free and available for any other student, correct? Basic one-on-one cases. Take real life examples, take real life projects, so that you are able to map every detail to one-on-one functions, right? And then you can start working on your database SQL. You can start then working on your logic in Java, step by step. Okay, don't think of a project as a whole big thing. Break it down so that it is in bite size for you, easy to eat. If you think of it as a whole big project, you will all be confused in how to do and where to start and all. Yes sir, now dot equal is used for value checking and double equals to is used for address checking or reference checking. Both the references are pointing to the same object location or not. I know syntax of, okay, Fahim says I know syntax of methods, but I can't able write a simple basic program and can't even understand the programming questions. Fahim, start with simple questions. Don't jump on to, see, knowing the syntax of a programming language is one thing, but actually being able to solve the program or being able to write the logic of the program is another thing altogether. So don't panic and don't mix one with the other, and don't panic if you are not able to do one or the other. What your problem is that you are not able to derive the logic of your programs, right? Which comes by practice. So don't get disheartened or don't lose hope if you are not able to write your programs. If one or two of your programs are not going right, keep practicing, keep learning, you know, more and more from each and every question. The more you practice, the more you will learn. Even if the program is giving you an error, you are learning. So keep trying. All right. So I got a few errors for this one. It compares alphabet by alphabet. Shashank, I hope you are referring to this particular question. You said it compares alphabet by alphabet. What does that mean? Debayan says apple. Okay. Sagar, compile time error because we don't create object. Sagar, who said you have to create object? It's a fairly simple program. Why do you need to create object here? Compile time error. Shubha Reddy says apple. Preeti says object not created. Madhav Rapu says apple. Reeve says compilation fails as interface can only have constants. All right. Nice point, but it is not giving you a compilation error. Because there is no fruit. Somewhere someone said compile time error because there is no fruit. Is it related to the concept of class inheritance? Yes, it is related to the concept of inheritance. It is related to the concept of whether interface can have a variable declared like this or not. No main method in program. Sagar, there is a main method in the program, public static void main, inside which we have a line that has system.out.println. Apple, apple, error, apple, error, apple. Suraj, I think you are repeating, you said this line before also, OP, and you're pointing to class memory address, but I'm not able to understand what you're trying to say in the line. Can you please elaborate if you have any question? Okay, apple, apple, apple. Enough time, guys. Moving on to the answer. So the simple thing happening here is we have an interface iFruit, inside which we have declared this variable type, right? Now when we implement this interface iFruit in the class fruit, this by default will also be part of the class fruit. Okay? All right. So Arnav, interface is like an abstract class, but in case of interface, all the methods that are there inside the interface are abstract. In case of abstract class, there can be methods which are not abstract as well. All right. But in interfaces, all methods are abstract. Okay, so when you implement the iFruit class to fruit class, this variable that you have created here by default becomes a part of the class fruit. And now inside your main, when you say fruit dot type, you have not created an object, correct? Now only when you have static members in the class, correct? That is the only case that you can use the variables by the class name. And what happens in an interface is, if you create any data member in an interface, it can be only static final data member. Only public, static and final are permitted. So if you create any type of variable inside this iFruit class, it is by default number 1 public, number 2 static, and number 3 final, correct? So this is a public static final variable that you see right here, type. So when it is inherited in this class, again it is public static final string type equals to apple. Okay, and that is why, since this is static, we did not need an object of the class fruit to print the type. So you can directly call all static data members of the class by directly using the class name. So we use class name dot variable name, that is type, and when you use this line, it will print apple on the screen. All right. A data member can be called with its class name. Only a static data member can be called with its class name. Not all data members can be called with the class name. Okay. Sagar is asking, if we don't create any object, then how we can get fruit type in class test? Sagar, I hope you got it now, because interfaces, if you have any data member, it is static final by default, right? So, and any static, for assessing any static member, you don't need a class object. Cool. So now that you are clear with this one, let's jump on to the next. Now in this case, we have a class instead of an interface, and we are extending the class to the next class. and rest of the program is basically the same. Instead of interface, now we are dealing with a class extending another class. So what is the output now? Alright, so we have 0 by Vipin, clear by Preeti. Sagar says compile time error. Ashutosh said Apple. I'll wait for a few more seconds for everyone else to answer. Sriram said Apple. This should be simple, guys. Now that we have already seen how it works with interface, you should be able to tell me how it will work here. The only change that is there is we have a class, we are extending it to another class, and the signature of the data member that we have in the class iFruit has changed to protected static string name. Instance variable of iFruit should be created. Avinash, we don't need instance variable of anything to be created. This is a program in itself, and for all those who are giving me compile time error, there is no compile time error in this program. Guys, focus. If you are saying there is a compile time error, you should have a solid reason or logic behind why there is a compile time error, right? Non-static member cannot refer through static context. That is what Sagar says. But which non-static member is referring through static context? See this question, let me give you a hint. This question is more about that we have protected variable name, whether we'll be able to access that protected variable in the class fruit or not. So someone just said, Mahesh just said variable must be public static final. So according to Mahesh, if it is public, then it will give the output, otherwise it will give compile time error. I hope I have got you right, Mahesh. So the question is whether with protected you will be able to get the output or not. Protected, Ajaz says protected are visible to child classes fruit while it's not visible to test. Ajaz, if it is visible to fruit, that is all we need, right? In the test, we are calling it with using class name fruit. So if it is visible to fruit, it will print apple. Div gave the answer apple. It depends on whether the two classes are in same package or not. That's correct. Again, pointing to the simple theory that protected member will be accessible only if all these classes are in the same package. So let's say all these classes are in the same package. What would be the output then, Vipin? Hemsagar, you are saying compile error as it is always public static final like before. So even if this is public instead of protected, then so definitely the output is apple. the question is, in case of protected, whether we'll be able to access this or not. Bhushan says here name is static and hence it cannot be referred through a static context. I think you meant to say through a non-static context. We are not referring to it through a non-static context. We are referring to it through the class name. And class name can refer to static member like we did before. Okay. Too many opinions and options out there. See, we have simple logic is the field name cannot be declared static in a non-static inner type. That is one funda, but that is not applicable in our case right here. Here what we have to deal with is the protected part that we have in this case, this one. So anything protected can be assessed by the derived class. So this name, even if it is protected, the derived class can assess this name. So the derived class has access to the name, correct? And since it has access to this name and it is static, we can call it using the class name.name. So the output is apple, correct? Now even if there is no protected here, let's say even protected is not there, just static string name, even then same thing will happen. Name will still be accessible by this class and the output will be apple. Only and only if in place of this we have private. Only then class fruit will not have access to this name variable, and then this will give us error. Okay? In all other cases, whether you have protected, whether you have public, whether you don't explicitly mention anything, we will get the output apple. Alright? So I hope you understood this. Only in the case of privates, if we explicitly mention that the member is private, only then we won't be able to assess it in the fruit class, and then it will give us error. Jumping on to the next. Now this can be a bit tricky. Also, like I said in the very beginning, default means we don't give anything, correct? Even in that case, we will be able to assess it if it is in the same package, like in our case. Alright. So this question, I have not done the indentation right because I wanted to put the question in one single frame for you guys. So ideally braces don't come at the end of the line, they come in the next line, but still that will not give error. That is just to put the whole slide in one frame for you. Okay, Madhav Rapu and Vipin says please repeat the use of static keyword. Okay, so I think you guys missed on a previous session where we discussed static in like real detail. Let me quickly rewind that. Static keyword can be used for variables, methods, block of codes and nested classes. Okay, 4 things can have static keyword in front of them. Now if a variable is static, that means it is a class variable. So it will remain same for different objects of the class, correct? If a method is static, that means that it will be loaded when the main class is called. Okay, again you don't need object of the class to run it. As soon as the class is loaded, any static method that is there will be loaded. Static blocks are used to simply assign values to any static member that we have in the class. Okay, that is simple purpose of a static block of code, if at all there is a static block of code. And then finally we have static nested classes. So there is a class inside which you have another class, which is this question that we will now be dealing with, nested classes. So static can be part of a nested class structure. Now the simple funda is that a non-static member or a non-static method cannot access a static member or a static method. Okay, you have to have a static function to access the static member classes. These are the simple rules. So one, we can have variable static, we can have method static, we can have block of code static, and we can have nested classes as static. And two, the access issue. If you have a static member, whether it will be accessed by static, non-static, etc., etc. Okay, these are the simple logics that come into play. Now in the question that we saw previously, we had a class wherein we had a protected static member which we were extending to our next class. Okay, now since it is protected, it can be accessed by our class. If our class is extending the iFruit, class fruit extends iFruit, in that case the protected member would be accessible in the class fruit. Now since it is protected and static, we don't need to create the object of the class fruit. We can simply say fruit.name. Okay, and as soon as you say fruit.name, apple gets printed on the screen. Very simple logic. Had it been private instead of protected, then it would have been confined to the class iFruit. Even if class fruit extends iFruit, it would not have access to the private member of the class. In that case, if you print fruit.name, then it will give you error. Okay, so I hope we are clear with this now. Moving on to the nested class question that we have. Mahesh will get to the answer in a while. Let everyone just quickly go through it. Ashutosh says pi is the answer. Override indicates the compiler that we particularly are referring to the run method. Since again name is static, output should be pi. Okay. Any more answers to this one? Everyone is scared of looking at override and run and threads, huh? Is that it? I'm not getting any answers for this question. Cannot override final method. Okay. But where is the final method? Okay, let me quickly explain since you guys are not giving me any answers on this. We have a class test inside which we have our main. Fine? So far so good? Arnav says better to skip this question. Arnav, it's a very simple question. You won't need to skip it. Just be with me for a minute and then you, I think yourself, will say that it's a simple question. And it is related to all the static, final, etc. that we have discussed so far. Okay, now we have a final class constants inside our main class. So this is our nested class. Okay, now inside the nested class, what we have done is we have created a static variable, public static string name equals to pi. Now all that is happening in this piece of code is we are starting a thread. All right, we have created a thread, overriding the run method, starting the thread. Now in the run method, what is happening? We are simply saying constants.name. Constant is the class name, dot name is the static variable, correct? So ideally, since we are saying class name dot variable name, it should print pi, which most of you are giving me the answer as, correct? That it's similar to the previous question, the class name dot member variable name, it should give you pi as the answer. But one simple thing that you have to remember is we are dealing with a nested class here. This is not a normal class. There is a class inside a class. This is a nested class. Now when you are dealing with a nested class, you cannot, the field name cannot be declared static in a non-static type. You cannot have a static member in a non-static type, correct? That is the simple rule of using static in the nested class, unless you initialized it with a constant expression. So if instead of this we have public final static, then this program is good to go, because then this is a constant which you can have inside the nested class, and then the output will come pi. But since we don't have this final here, you cannot have a static inside a non-static reference, and that is why this will give you a compile time error. All right. Inner class can have static declaration Jagdish, it's just that it has to be a constant. It has to have final along with it. Okay. Otherwise, yes, it cannot. Okay. I hope this is clear to you guys, and Arnav, I hope to you too it's clear now. See, all this code that we have right here sometimes confused, because threads are like a really scary thing for everyone, I can understand, but it's a simple thread. We created a new thread overriding the run method. In the run method, we are calling constant.name. So whenever we start the thread, constant.name will be printed. Okay. Now to print constant.name, we should have a final keyword also here. Otherwise, we'll get error, because static reference cannot happen inside a non-static class. All right, guys. Jumping on to the next. Now we are on to wrapper classes. What's the output of this program? Preeti asked me to explain again. Okay, Preeti, the simple funda is when you have static for a nested class, if you have a static reference in a nested class, I hope you understood that we had a nested class there. Okay, so if you have a static reference in a nested class, the class reference should also be static. You cannot have static member variable inside a non-static function. Okay, and only when that static member is a constant, that is, it has a final keyword attached to it, only then you can have it in the form that it was shown. You can, I'll not change the slide now because everyone else would be working on this question. You can go back and check the question, okay, and then you can understand it better. So when you have final, that means the member variable is a constant, and then the program will give you pi as output. But if final is not there, that means you are having a static reference inside a non-static function, and that too a nested class. So that will give you a compiler error. So okay, for this one, true, then true, both are true. Okay, someone asked me what are wrapper classes. Wrapper classes are the classes that again was in the last session in very detail. If you want in detail, you can go back to the previous session and check it. Let me quickly explain in short here. When you wrap up your primitive data type to create object, that is a wrapper class. So any integer, if you want it not as a primitive data type but as an object, you use wrapper class integer. Similarly, there are wrapper classes called float and double and character, etc. Okay, so far everyone says true. The first answer that is true false is by Shubha. Okay, everyone else so far said true and true for both the print statements. Pratesh also says true false. Okay, I'm just taking the name of people who are saying true false because everyone else comes under true category. Madhav Rabu says, can you suggest any tutorial to learn Java? Madhav Rabu, like I said, Eclipse is very good place to learn Java. Don't need anything else. If you are starting from scratch, if you go back to the channel, TalentSprint IT channel, there is a tutorial series that is targeted for beginners who are starting to learn Java. So the series have very basic starting videos from how to install Java, how to install JDK, how to install Eclipse, how to work in Eclipse, how to write your first program. It will take you through from the very basics, and once you are through with that, then you can go ahead and write your own programs and work on more programs. So go back to the channel and you can subscribe to the channel. There are videos coming up every week on that playlist. Someone said false. Suraj Gupta says false. Okay. Okay, I think all of you have had the chance to answer. So I'll jump on to the explanation. So what is happening here is, first off, we are dealing with wrapper classes. So that means this is an object. This is an object of class integer. Both of these are objects, and both of these are referring to the memory location that stores 127. So like I said before, when I1 is created and 127 is initialized, I1 is pointing to this. Now when I2 is created, the memory sees that there is already 127 in the cache or in the pool. Okay, so I2 is also pointing to the same memory location. Fine. Now since both of these are objects, and double equals to checks whether both your references are pointing to the same memory location or not. So this first statement will give you true as output. Alright, wrapper classes are similar to string immutable. That's true, Mahesh. So the same thing is happening. We have object references checking whether both are pointing to the same location or not. Now this caching of integer value happens only till a certain limit. Okay, now as soon as you go beyond this limit, that is beyond 127 in case of integers, and you create 128, every time you create 128, a new object will be created. So I3 will be pointing to this, and when you create I4, another object will be created that would be pointing to this. Okay, so in this case I3 double equals to I4 will give you false. Now why is this happening? 127 we have we have used the same location, and I1 and I2 are two objects pointing to the same location. But I3, I4, in case of I3, I4, as soon as we turn to 128, we have two different objects, right? So this is the concept of cache working with integers. So only till 127 the cache pool will have your value stored. Beyond that, the cache pool will not have your value stored. So every time you create any value beyond this, beyond 128, it will create a new object for you. And since a new object is created, that means your reference are pointing to two different objects, which means double equals to will give you false as output. Now you can go ahead and try this program. Whenever we are done with the session, try this program with different values of numbers greater than 127. So if you say here 129, I3 initialized to 129 or 130 or 140, and I4 also initialized to 140. For anything above and beyond 127, you will get false. And anything less than 127, you will get true. Because what is happening is, why do we have this concept of storing memory in cache? Number one, to save your memory usage, because cache can directly refer to it. Number two, to improve the performance, so that you directly refer to cache quickly and get the output back. Okay, now this happens only for a limited values. Okay, everyone is asking me to repeat, so I'll quickly repeat. What happens is, when you create, let's say I1 equals to 127, I1 is pointing to a memory location that stores 127. Okay, now this memory location is in the cache pool. Now as soon as I2 is created with the same memory location, I2 points to the same place. Now beyond a certain value, cache memory doesn't keep values in itself. So for after a certain value, that is in integer case, after 127, there is no value stored in the cache. So every time you create, if let's say you create a I5 again with 128, that will create again a new object. Okay, so till 127 we have cache memory that holds 127 or any value less than 127. So as many objects as you create, they will point to the 127 in the cache. But above 127, 128 or greater than 128, the value will not be stored in the cache. This is not in the cache now, this is in your program pool. So every time you create 128, since it is not in the cache, every time you create a variable with 128, a new object is created. So I3 is a new object, I4 is a new object. If you create an I5, that will be a new object. And since all these are new objects, okay, these will be pointing to different location, and hence this will result in false. Alright, the simple funda is that this caching principle that is introduced in Java 5, before Java 5 version it was not there, it was introduced in Java 5. So this caching principle caches the values only till 127. So till 127 it will remain true, beyond 127 it will become false. Since you don't have the value in the cache, you create new object every time you create a value greater than 127. Alright, I hope this is clear now. It's a very simple concept that was introduced in Java 5, the boxing cache concept, which works like this. So this becomes a very tricky question, because everyone thinks that for the first case it's true, so for the second case it will also be true. But just one change of value will give you false. Try with anything beyond 128 for I3 and I4, you will get false. And if you try with anything below 127, you will get true. Okay. Okay, Sagar is asking me how much value for double, float, long and string. Okay, this caching concept doesn't, like as you have already seen for string, the string example we have already seen. For the rest integer wrapper classes like byte, short and long, -127 to 127. All right. And for character wrapper class, it is 0 to 127. So for all the integer wrapper classes like integer, byte, short and long, the range is -127 to 127. So in this range, the value is stored in the cache. For character, it is 0 to 127. Okay, fine. Let's jump on to the next question, guys. Float, char, double don't have the concept of caching. So float, char, double, every time you create any object, not char, character is 0 to 127. Float and double, every time you create an object, even with the similar value, it will be a new object. It will not be in the cache. Any value that you take for float or double. All right. Jumping on to the next one. Again, a one-liner. So this one should be quick. Okay, I think now you are able to hear me. So what is happening here is we have a println. Now in the println we have math.min. Okay, the min function checks what is the minimum value between the two parameters that are given. Okay, the two parameters that we have are double dot min value and 0.0d. Now what we have to calculate between the two is what is the minimum value. Now in case of double dot min value, double is a wrapper class, min value is the minimum value that the double can hold. Okay, so the min value that double can hold is 4.9 e to the power minus 324, and this is an absolute value, it is not negative. It is an absolute value of what it can hold. So this value becomes greater than 0.0d, and hence the minimum value is 0.0d. So this is our output. Now in place of double, had we had integer in this place, that is integer dot min value. Integer dot min value gives you negative value. Okay, the integer dot min value has minus 2147483648, that is integer dot min value. Okay, so if in place of double dot min value we would have integer dot min value, then minimum would have been this. But since this is double, double is absolute, so 0.0d is the minimum. Okay, moving on to the next question. I hope everyone understood this. This is related to long. So the calculation is simple, guys, it's just multiplication. The simple funda to keep in mind here is one has L at the end, one doesn't. So you need to figure out your answers based on what would this change. E represents exponentiation. So for double we have a normal value and then we have exponent 10 to the power, right? So E represents that 10 to the power of what? So the simple funda here is, since we are running out of time, let me quickly explain what is happening here. When we specify L, it explicitly says that it is a long value. So we hold it in a long variable with L. So whatever the multiplication would result, the exact same value will come in this, that is 31536 000000. This is what you get after multiplying all these numbers. So this exact value will come in long with L. But without L, if you don't explicitly specify that it is a long variable, even though you are storing it in long, these are all integers, right? So when you multiply integers and they go beyond the boundary of the variable that an integer can hold, it starts truncating it. Okay? So the purpose of L simply here is that it explicitly says that it is a long beforehand, before you start doing the multiplication, so that as soon as your multiplication keeps increasing and your data keeps growing out, it knows that it is a large number, so it keep it as it is intact without truncating it. But in the other case, since there is integer multiplication happening, and integers can hold less amount of data than a long variable can hold, correct? So when the data goes beyond the boundary of integer, it truncates it to 32-bit max value. So this could change from compiler to compiler, but the value would not exactly come out as the multiplication because this will be truncated. Since the maximum value that an integer would be able to hold is 2147483647. So the maximum bit here would be truncated and the output will be different from the exact output. Alright, so depending on the output options that we have, this will keep changing. Okay, so when you explicitly say L, you get exact same multiplication output even when it goes out of the bound of integer range. If you don't have L, then if it goes out of the bound of integer range, it gets truncated and the exact multiplication output will not be printed. Alright, now jumping to the final question. We have pre-increment and post-decrement here combined with static variable. Alright, I'll give you a minute or so for this. Go ahead, try it out and give me the answers. Any answers, guys? We have a static variable that holds the value 1111, and then in the static block we are playing around with the value of a. Then again we have another block of code where we are dealing with manipulating the value of a and finally printing a in the main. Sagar says 3. Ram Kumar says 1111. Guys, focus on the question, please. We have a static variable a, 1111, and then we have a static block. Remember, static blocks are executed as soon as the class is loaded. So whenever your class is loaded, the variable a will be initialized to 1111 and then the static block will be executed. Sagar says 1109. Sagar, that's the wrong answer. Try again. Suresh says 2. Okay, for the ease of everyone, 2 is the correct answer. Now figure out how 2 is coming. I hope you can clearly see the spaces between the pre-increments and the post-increments in both the lines. So we have operators working here and we have operators working here. Now which one of these line is called, which order they are called? Shubha Reddy also gave me 2. Anyone else trying it? Karthik says 3, Abhinash says 1. There's a non-static block, I think. Yes, it is a non-static block. Only the first block with the first line where we are using pre-decrement and post-decrement operators is the static block, and where we are using pre-increment and post-increment, it's a normal block of code. It is not static. Sagar said 3. Karthik, I'll get to how 2 will be the right answer. I'm just waiting for everyone to give it a go. Alright, so what is happening is we have a static variable a 1111. Now as soon as the class loads, you know that the static blocks get executed. Okay, so when the static block is executed, it will be executed in this order. Correct? We have a post decrement minus, then pre decrement. Now for this post decrement, the value would be 1111. Then the value changes to 111110. Okay, since it is post decrement, so here the value will remain the same, and then it will change to 1110 minus again pre decrement. Now this pre decrement will be applied on this number, so that will be 1109. We are again subtracting 1 from this. We are doing a pre decrement. Okay, so this will be 1109. Now when you subtract 1109 from 1111, you get 2. So after the execution of the static block, as soon as the class is loaded, the value of a becomes 2. And since in the main we are directly printing the value of a, this block that you see here will never get executed. Correct? So the output will come out to be 2. Alright? I hope this is clear. So the post decrement, the value will remain 1111, then it will change to 1110 for the next pre decrement. Okay, then pre decrement happens, minus 1, it becomes 1109, and finally when you subtract, the value of a comes out to be 2. Alright, and this block of code that you see right here will never be executed since it never enters the call. So as soon as you go to main, you are printing the value of a. Static was initialized, static block was run, and the output comes out to be 2. Alright, so that was it, guys. That was for all the tricky questions that we have so far. I hope you learned a lot. We saw inheritance, we saw interfaces, we saw abstract classes, we saw how the use of static and final and inner classes work. We also saw primitive data types, unary operators, we saw wrapper classes, we saw the questions around the last pre-increment and post-decrement, etc. Right? Ashutosh is asking, what if the second block is static? Okay, let me go back to the slide. Okay, I think I closed the session, so I cannot go back to that. But if the second block is also static, in that case what will happen is you again go to a plus plus. So a value was 2, a plus plus you do, value will remain 2, but it will increment, that is 3. Then again plus plus a will happen on 3, so now a becomes 4, and the final addition will happen 2 plus 4, that will come out to be 6. All right, that is what will happen. Fine. Now that was about the session, guys. Few of you asked when will be the next session. You can subscribe to the channel. I don't have the final date. Most probably it will be 9th October. So go ahead, subscribe to the channel so that you get notification as soon as we post up the link for the next live session. And for those of you who are looking at, I think many of you in today's session asked me how to prepare for Java. I'm new, beginner. I think Madhav, you also asked me how to prepare for Java. So go to the channel. There is a Java tutorial for beginner class, and once you subscribe to the channel, there are new videos coming up on it every week, and you can start from the very basic of how to download, how to use Eclipse, and slowly progress towards building up your Java skills. So there are 5 10 short minute videos, so you can spend half an hour every day, watch the video and then practice on your own, and slowly you will build up on your skills. All right, happy Dashera to you too, Shubha. And last point, guys, if any one of you have any doubts or queries or questions, you can any point of time before the next live session leave a comment on this live session. So if you have any questions that you want me to take up or any topic that you want me to discuss in the live session, leave a comment below whenever you are practicing whatever doubts you have, and we'll try to take those up in the next sessions. All right, so have a nice week, keep practicing, keep coding, and I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.